I've gotten addicted to vlogs and nothing can stop me. I'm going to talk this time about something weird about having been into anime for such a long time and having written about it for such a long time and having had opinions for such a long time, but um having so little of my career and opinions be like easily accessible and things that people can easily find. I get asked all the time for my opinions on all kinds of shows that I've watched over the last 15 years that I've been into anime. And it's hard for me to like really formulate thoughts on shows that I might have watched 10 years ago, and like I have no idea what I'd think if I watched them now. My tastes have changed so much, and I care about so many different things, and I would say so many different things about them if I saw them now. But for some of them, I do have, like, I remember what they made me feel before, so I could still talk about that. And a lot of them are shows that I don't think I'll ever get back to, like stuff that maybe meant something to me once, but I don't think I'd ever watch it again or continue with it. Shows that I dropped ages ago. So, on the one hand, I have my anime blog where you could go back and read old posts of mine, but aside from that being kind of a pain in the ass to like link people to or to tell them to go do, most of my writing was fucking terrible back then. Most people aren't really interested in reading stuff anyways, and like I don't know, it just feels weird to link back to these super old posts. So instead, I thought it might be interesting to start making every once in a while just do little videos about some of the shows that I get asked about a lot that I don't have any real plans to revisit anytime soon, that I maybe, have no desire to make like a long video about, but that I wouldn't mind sharing my thoughts on just so that they're out there and people can easily find them. So I'm going to start with two of the most popular shows ever, shows and manga adaptations, manga and their adaptations rather, which are Bleach and Naruto, two of the big three. I think most people know how I feel about One Piece because I made a video about One Piece. That's one of the most popular ones on my channel. I haven't read One Piece since then. I've read about 160 chapters of One Piece. So I was in the Alabasta arc, I think, when I stopped. And I intend to finish it one day. It's not over, but I will eventually catch up. But it's on hold for now. But I do love One Piece, and I've seen most of the movies, and I enjoyed most of them. But Naruto and Bleach I've never really talked about, and I don't know if I'll ever like try to reread them or revisit them. So I figured, why not do a quick vlog so that at least people can know how I feel. So I was really into Naruto when I was 12, back in 2003. And back then I was when I first really got big into anime, and like all I cared about was anime. And I found out about manga around that time, and it just so happened that Shonen Jump started publishing in the US. We had monthly Shonen Jump, these compilation magazines that had like, the early ones had Yu Yu Hakusho, Shaman King, Naruto, One Piece, Yu-Gi-Oh! What else was in there? Bleach came later, but I don't think I ever had one that had Bleach in it until much later. Dragon Ball Z, and I want to say a few others. The real big three in the beginning, like the three that really had my attention were like Shaman King, One Piece, and Naruto. Like those were the three ones that hadn't come out anywhere else yet. Because like Dragon Ball Z and Yu-Gi-Oh! And Yu Yu Hakusho, all those anime were on TV. So I was already like well familiar with the anime versions of those. But Naruto, One Piece, Bleach later, and Shaman King didn't have anime out here yet. So I was like really into each of them, and they started from the very beginning with them in Monthly Shonen Jump. I was collecting the volumes, and then like they started releasing the graphic novels, and I think I had like 8 or 9 Naruto volumes, maybe 10. Maybe I had 10 volumes of Naruto. I sold all but the first one because I have a holo cover of the first, which is like a 1 in 5,000 thing that has a unfortunately a crease in the cover because I loaned it to a friend who fucking just tossed it in his backpack and creased the fucking cover like an idiot. But I thought it might be worth something one day, so I never sold it. But I was really into it at the time because I was 12 and Naruto was 12 and all the characters were 12 and back then I really related to characters who were my age. And it's kind of funny because I always saw like the characters from Yu Yu Hakusho and the characters from like Inuyasha and stuff as being like a lot older than me, even though those characters are only like 14. But it's just because they were kind of drawn like to look a little bit more adult and to look more like a yeah, I guess just more. I was a really short, shrimpy kid who looked very young. Like I looked even younger than I was. Like even when I was 12, I was just really girly looking as well. I've always had super long hair. I know that it hasn't always been in my videos, but when I was growing up, I had really long hair, and back then I didn't have all the facial hair and everything. I was just skinny little girly looking kid. And so like the characters in Naruto, even like they were 12 and they were all like drawn to look like kids. You know, they were sort of skinny and like punkish a little bit, and I loved that. I loved Naruto and Sasuke as characters. Like I thought they were totally cool. And then I also was like a big fan of, I believe his name was Haku when he showed up from the Zabuza art because he looked like me. He was a little boy, looked like a little girl. So I thought that was really cool. And like it was just a fun action thing, like a bunch of kids kicking ass, throwing fucking knives and shit. Everything to do with ninjas is fucking cool when you're 12. And it was the first it was kind of the first thing I'd seen that was like legit ninja stuff, where like they used all the weapons and they did all the techniques and shit like that, whereas like Ninja Turtles is like they're called Ninja Turtles but they have nothing to do with ninjas really. But yeah, it was really fun and cool, and I love the art style. I still think Naruto is like really well. I've seen some of what it looks like later into the volumes, and it looks very mechanical after a certain point. Like it looks like a fucking computer drew it or something. There's like no soul, I think, in a lot of the later Naruto art. But in the early stuff, it had this really rough, cool look. And I remember the issues, like each volume rather, would have like a blurb from the creator where he'd talk about his influences and stuff like that. And he was saying how like growing up it was his brother who was like more into drawing, and his brother also became a manga artist. I believe he wrote 666 Satan and something else. But he like got into it later, and he had said that it was when the movie Akira came out and he saw a poster for it, and he just like stopped in the middle of the road and stared at this Akira poster for hours. It was the one where it's Kaneda walking up to the bike and like the cracks in the road and everything, and he was just like so entranced with it. And I definitely would say you can see like elements of Akira and maybe a little bit of Dragon Ball in his design work, but it's a very distinct style. And the action scenes were pretty well drawn and had like these big kick-ass moments with lots of violence. For me it was like seeing something that was like kid friendly enough that I could easily follow it, and it felt like it was for me and for kids my age, but it was also violent and intense, was like really cool. Because there's like that scene in volume 4 where Sasuke jumps in front of Naruto and like takes all these knives and just like fucking blood explodes everywhere, and then Haku gets killed and everything, and there was a lot of blood there. So that shit was cool. And I remember that the volumes were rated 13 and up. Like they had like a little rating on the back. And there was one time when I actually was 13, and I think it was volume 4 actually that I was buying, and I was at like a Walden Books, which is an old bookstore that is out of business now, like pretty much every other bookstore. But I went to a Walden Books and I was trying to buy volume 4, and I was talking, like the lady behind the counter wouldn't let me buy it without my parent being there, because like my mom was somewhere else in the mall, so I like went in by myself to buy this, with money she had given me. And the lady was like, "Oh, this is for 13 and up." And I'm like, "I am 13." And she's like, "Oh, you this is really violent." Like she flipped through it and saw the blood and was like, "Oh, this is too violent for you. You can't have this." And I was like, "What the fuck, fucking bitch." So I think I had to go get my mom and have her buy it for me. So by the time I stopped, they were in the middle of the the tuning exams. I don't think they'd gotten to the tournament part. I think it was building up to the Rock Lee fight, like the big famous Rock Lee versus Gata fight. Like I never actually read that fight itself. I was just in the middle of the build up to it. But I remember that I wasn't that into it at that point because it was like it was getting to the point where it was a lot more of characters just like standing around explaining powers and stuff. Like cuz the first volumes had like after establishing the characters, they like went out to the city of the mist with Zabuza and all that, and it was like cool. They've gone on like an adventure. They've gone somewhere else, and then it was just like with the tuning exams, they were in this forest for a while, and then shit got confusing, and then it just suddenly turned into a tournament, and everyone was just standing around, and I was like, I kind of want us to go somewhere to have adventures, you know. Um, so yeah, I was just like kind of losing interest in it at that point, and then the anime started in like '05, I want to say, on Cartoon Network, but it was like hideously different. Like I hated the dub. I hated the voice acting. I hated that Naruto suddenly was saying "believe it" all the time when they had just not really translated the Date Bio thing in the graphic novels. Like I don't even think he had a catchphrase. I think they just wrote that out entirely. I could be remembering wrong, but I don't remember him having a catchphrase like that. And they had changed the story. Like they added, even in like the second episode, had like extended filler where like there had been a chapter in the manga where he was training the Hokage's grandson or something. And it was just like this quick little chapter, but they made a whole episode out of it in the anime. And I was like, this is fucking lame. So I never actually watched any of the Naruto anime. By that time, I was just like a little too old for it, and I didn't care anymore. And then it was funny because like most of what I've seen from Naruto is from like AMVs, because like in 2006 and 2007, like when YouTube was first getting off the ground, and like I got really into YouTube, and I would always be looking for music on YouTube, and like every fucking band had a Naruto AMV. Like the only way you could ever find music on YouTube was through AMVs, because back then people didn't just upload songs up there, you know, and of course there was also the issue of like copyright stuff. But for whatever reason, AMVs wouldn't get taken down. So like I'd be trying to get into some new band, and all I'd be able to find is AMVs set to either Kingdom Hearts or Naruto. It did, like, even for like relatively obscure bands, it's kind of amazing how like prevalent the Naruto and Kingdom Hearts AMVs are. So like I've seen the Naruto versus Sasuke fight like 1,000 times by way of AMVs, and then like. And then later, I also have seen parts of it through Sakuga AMVs, because every time there's like a really like well animated fight in Naruto, it's always like they brought in some amazing animator to do it. But yeah, so like everything I've heard about Naruto is that it goes downhill massively. Like all the people I knew who were following it, it was so funny because when I was in high school, everyone would always tell me that they were only keeping up with Naruto because of Hinata. Everyone loved Hinata for whatever reason. Like everyone thought she was the coolest, most adorable character, and everyone loved her. So people would always say, "Oh, I'm just watching it for Hinata. I just want to see Hinata." And like it was like something I'd hear all the time, like online and off. It was so funny to me. And then yeah, like everyone I know who read the whole thing said it was like fucking stupid and terrible, and that it just went on for too long. So I didn't bother reading the rest of it. I don't really care to. So then Bleach, interestingly enough, I read the first two volumes of Bleach back then in like '04 when they started publishing it here. And I thought it was okay. I wasn't really into it in any kind of big way. It just kind of felt like another Monster of the Week thing. And by this point, I had already seen enough anime that, you know, even at that young age, I had seen enough Monster of the Week shit to be like, okay, this is just a guy fighting demons. Like, I've seen enough guys fighting. I had written my own manga about a guy fighting demons before, you know, like, that's how common of a thing that was. But, like, then the anime came out, and I just never really watched it. It was at, like, an era of Adult Swim that I wasn't that into it, and it just seemed kind of slow and boring, so I never got into it. And then it was funny because in my late teens, or like my mid-teens rather, like ages 16 to 17 or so, I was like that really like pretentious hipster anime douchebag, because I was watching so much stuff. Like I was watching everything, and I knew a lot of stuff, and it would make me so mad because there was a decent contingent of kids in my school who watched anime, but all of them just knew like Naruto, Bleach, maybe Elfen Lied or something. Like just like five shows that everyone knew. And like I went to Otakon for the first time in like 2008, and there'd be all these kids walking around in the fucking uh the Naruto, like there's like that one group that shows up later where they all wear like that uniform, and everyone would have that uniform, or like people in Soul Society stuff, and I'd just be like, oh, fucking Naruto and Bleach fans. Like, so I was making fun of like Naruto and Bleach fans all the time, and then I knew at least one guy who was like really into Bleach, who was like someone who wasn't like a kid, who was an actual anime fan, and I had this period where like I started like having to apologize for all this stuff I'd made fun of that I hadn't actually seen before. Like Higurashi was one where I always thought it just looked like it, like from an outsider perspective, it just looks like it's one of like grimdark for the sake of it type thing. Like it's just there to appease that crowd. And then when I actually watched it, I really liked it. So then with Bleach, I'd been talking shit about it for so long, and then I read the entire thing up to the point where it was after it was like the end of the Hueco Mundo arc. Like they had beaten all the generals, and like it was like they were getting towards the big fight with Aizen. I think, I don't know if they ever actually did, but it was like they'd beaten down all the generals, and there was like three guys left, and they were fighting like over. I believe they were flying over Ichigo's hometown or something like that, and yeah, it was just like a long sequence of battles essentially. But they were getting down to the end of the Hueco Mundo guys, and I enjoyed all of it. Like I thoroughly enjoyed Bleach. I thought it made perfect sense to read it all in order, because I think Bleach is one of those where it's written in such a way that the pacing makes sense if you read it all at once. Like it feels very filmic, like it's paced like a movie almost. I mean, like an insanely long movie that keeps coming, like it keeps going and going. But like uh a 20-page chapter you read in 5 seconds. Like you're just blasting through volumes, and then when you have to slow down and read it week by week, it totally falls apart. Like the pacing makes no sense because it takes so long for anything to happen because the pages are really sparse. Whereas when you're reading it all at once, that doesn't bother you at all. So, like once I caught up, I tried to read it week by week for like 4 weeks, and I just gave up because I was like, this is never gonna work. But like yeah, I thought all of it was fun. I loved the characters, I loved the art style, I loved the weapons, I loved the fucking fight with Grimjow Jaggerjack. The fact that his name is Grimjow Jaggerjack was the best part of the whole thing. um I remember thinking that like though that there was a lot of characters who I was really into who would just kind of get left by the wayside because he kept introducing more and more guys. Where like when they introduced the what are they the guys at the start of the Hueco Mundo arc, they introduced all the bad guys, and they introduced this like whole new troop of dudes with like holes in their chest, like they were like hollow humans or something. I don't fucking remember. This was like 2009, I think, that I read all of Bleach. And so like they would introduce new guys who wouldn't be as cool as the old guys, and then I'd be like, when am I going to get to see the old guys again, because they haven't finished their storylines. I think there was a girl named, was her name Tatsumaki? Something like that. It was the black-haired girl who was friends with Orihime. I remember thinking she was cool, and then she never showed up again. It was the dude with the hat. I don't fucking know, man. Kenpachi Zaraki. I have like all these random like this sort unsorted memories of Bleach, like because that's the thing. Even though I read it and I really liked it, I considered it like an 8 out of 10. It was a cool manga, and then like by a year later, I remembered none of it. Like it was the kind of thing where I thought that maybe once a year I'd like catch up, but I honestly could not name any of the characters or tell you why any of them are relevant to one another besides the ones that have funny names. Like I remember thinking Grimjow Jaggerjack was cool, but I don't remember why. And then I heard he comes back later, and I thought that was lame. I remember there was the one I loved how like in the Hueco Mundo arc, like each fight would have like a different art style. Like when he fought the bat-winged dude and it got all gothy and shit, that was cool. But yeah, and Bleach is another one because the thing is like the reason I read that I was so into it was that everyone always says that Bleach went downhill, and everyone has a different time that they think it went downhill. Like, if you watch my Japanese anime's Bleach, then Jesse makes the case that basically season 1 was the good part, as he puts it, and then like after that it just kind of gets to be whatever. Some people think it sucks after the Soul Society arc, some people think it sucks after the Hueco Mundo arc, and I really think it depends on when you started reading week by week, or when you started being, held hostage by it, because again, it all makes sense if you read it in order, but like, or all at once, but like once you have to wait, the pacing is just unbelievably shit, to read week by week. Like, to see them fighting the same bad guy for 10 fucking years. It's just, like, really boring. So, like, maybe if Bleach ends, I would consider giving it a shot. But, like, the fact that I don't hear anybody saying that it's, like, still great. I never hear that. People are always complaining about it. So, who knows? I don't really trust other people's opinions on most things anyways. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on Naruto and Bleach. In case you were curious about how I felt about 2 of the big 3, I get asked about them sometimes. I'll probably never make a video about either one unless I did catch up on Bleach and really love it. But the thing is that there's no way I'm going to watch the anime for either one, because, like, I can't take the pacing of, like, and the animation quality of those long-form shonens, where it's, like, because the manga is always great, like, because the art never falls apart unless it's like Hunter x Hunter, where, he started doing scribbles towards the end of certain arcs. But, like, when you read, like, One Piece or Naruto or Bleach, then every chapter looks on point and they're tightly paced. Like, it's like reading it week by week sucks, but when you read it all at once, it all makes sense, like I said. But when you try to watch the anime, they stretch out each chapter to be this, like, terribly paced, fucking boring 20-minute onslaught with shit animation most of the time. Characters constantly going off model and stuff. So, like, yeah, like, I have no desire to watch the anime versions. And because of that, if I ever wanted to make a video about those manga, then I'd have to make a manga video. And making videos about manga sucks, because it's really hard to make manga look good in video form. We found a little bit of success with it in the Details versus Flow video, but, like, it's still kind of a nightmare to try to, like, present something that's cool in manga to be cool in video, because you just can't read it the same way. So yeah, that's probably what I'll ever have to say about those. If there's any other shows like that, older ones that that I've never really talked about, and make sure I've never really talked about it, like, in a video before you ask me to, but, feel free to suggest other ones you want to hear about. I'm not going to do all of them, but any ones that I like, with Naruto and Bleach, because I do actually have a history with them, like, I thought it might be interesting to share my thoughts, just because I'll never probably have new thoughts about them. So that's it.